How many of you know what a physician-assisted death is? Well, for those of you who don't, or think it's the same as euthanasia, it's not. A physician-assisted death is when a doctor prescribes a person who is terminally ill a lethal dose of a prescription, knowing they intend to take their life with it. Now, for those of you who may not agree with an assisted death, imagine being the one who is ill and knowing you only had months left to live. It's terrible, right? Now think about those who are actually terminally ill, some in much more pain than others, and some just wanting to have control over their end of life. Receiving an assisted death is not an easy decision to come to. However, every person who is terminally ill should have the option of an assisted death. As said in the book Professional Integrity and Assisted Death, the use of professional knowledge and skill to help a patient end his or her life can be justified only if professional integrity is not violated. And despite many people believing an assisted death is inhumane and degrading to human life, people should have the right to have control over their end of life. Today, I'm going to tell you why people have the right to an assisted death, and when they're suffering from an extreme illness. I'll then explain to those who may disagree the reality of not having assisted death legalized throughout the country. And finally, I'll discuss the circumstances in which it should be acceptable. Some may argue that any form of suicide is wrong, especially when aided by another individual. However, it is important to take a moment to consider the position that these patients are in. People are suffering from a painful disease, and they should have the right to an assisted death if that's what they choose. However, only Washington, D.C. and 8 of the states have death with dignity statutes, and the process to get death with dignity is difficult, to say the least. Although only a small amount of states have created a death with dignity statute, people all over the country would benefit from them. And most of the people who opt for an assisted death are usually suffering from a terminal cancer, a neurological disease, or end organ failure. Those who disagree with an assisted death may be struggling to conceptualize the idea of being terminally ill and the suffering that comes with it. It's important for people to be able to end their life in these circumstances under their control. Even if it were to be legalized throughout the country, not every person is going to choose this path, but they all deserve to have the choice. According to Death with Dignity, only 209 individuals in 2019 made the choice of an assisted death, but still, only 188 of them actually went through with it. Since there are very few states that have these laws, we have to look at other countries to actually get an approximation at the rate in which assisted deaths would occur. According to New England Journal of Medical, only 2.7% of the 2.3 million people who die each year in the United States would choose an assisted death if it were to be legalized. And even though some states allow assisted death, some still require court orders. Before those other states followed in Oregon's Death with Dignity Act, a young woman named Brittany Maynard was only 29 years old when she was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer. At that time, California didn't have its End of Life Act, so Brittany and her family had to reluctantly leave their home in San Francisco and move to Oregon, so that Brittany could receive the care she desired. When she spoke out, she talked about her choice to go with dignity and how it was less terrifying. Choosing to end their life isn't an easy decision to come to, but granting people all over the country access to an assisted death is the right thing to do. There have been many cases where people are suffering and want to end their life on their terms with their dignity, but are denied it due to the laws. Along with these people being terminally ill, the median age for an assisted death patient was 74 years old, and 90% of the patients were already in hospice care. I don't believe that we have the right to deny someone who is already having to endure so much pain to suffer more because of other people's beliefs and opinions. There are people all over the country who are like Brittany, people who don't want to die. They all want to live a long and happy life, but sadly, they know they won't be able to. People like her shouldn't have to change so many aspects of their life to gain access to an assisted death. No one wants this to be their life, and they shouldn't have to wait for the disease or treatment to overcome their bodies. People who are suffering like this deserve to have the control. They have the right to an assisted death, and they should be able to end their life in a peaceful way. Approximately 62,000 people in the United States might choose an assisted death if it were to be legalized. And while that may seem like a lot, that's 62,000 people who made this decision for themselves instead of suffering. It's impossible for anyone to argue that assisted death is inhumane. What's inhumane is denying assisted death. It's saying you would rather let them suffer until their end than giving them the choice to end their life when and where they please, in peace and comfort with the people that they love most.